I created a Gothic estate in the 3D world builder and virtual tabletop system of RPG stories. During the design process, I considered how to make this project compatible with Dungeons & Dragons, as well as with other game systems and creative output. You can use or modify this project in whatever manner will work best for you. In the web links of this video, you can learn more about RPG stories, and you can access this complete project in the Steam workshop. The estate is the home of a baroness, who probably is a vampire. In a nearby village, people say that the baroness is more than 100 years old, although she remains frozen in the age of her youth. She comes from a family that claims to belong to a draconic bloodline, and perhaps this ancestry can account for the bizarre, extraordinary, and possibly supernatural aspects about the baroness and about her estate. Characters may find various reasons to go to the estate or to meet with the baroness. In my version of this story, the characters become responsible for escorting a distant relative of the baroness out to the estate. The distant relative has been suffering from an illness that makes her feel hungry, weak, and sleepy. The apothecaries and the priests cannot find a cure, and now the baroness has invited the relative over to the estate with the promise of applying a special treatment that has been a family secret for centuries. The escort mission allows for the characters to learn about this distant relative and to learn some of the rumors and gossip about the baroness and her mysterious family heritage. For instance, the baroness reportedly never eats anything, and she drinks only the wine from her private collection that nobody else is allowed to touch. When approaching the estate, the characters will notice that the forest becomes thinner. Most of the trees appear to be dead. Shrubs and bushes grow here, but the plant growth overall appears to be unhealthy and certainly not a lush garden or farmland that otherwise might be expected at the estate of a baroness. The characters will see a few old statues, and they will see a graveyard. The characters arrive here around sunset when a few bats begin to fly through the area. The distant relative of the baroness recalls stories about the bats in this place. If the characters will explore, then they will find a cave where bats pass through the tiny cracks and fissures, indicating that a larger cave is somewhere farther back in there. When arriving at the main entrance, the courtier will be there to greet the arriving guests. The courtier is the primary point of contact and communications. He inserts himself into all of the affairs and encounters with the characters. The characters at first might appreciate the attention and the access to more information, but soon they might feel annoyed by the constant supervision. Additionally, the courtier becomes vague or changes the subject whenever the characters ask something too specific about the baroness, about her reported draconic bloodline, or about anything else extraordinary or supernatural. The characters will see the exterior front face of the main hall. The baroness will host a banquet here later in the evening, after the full dark of the night, but right now still is twilight time around sunset. The characters are invited to the nearby kitchen and effectively the tavern for the estate, where they can rest and refresh. Any horses will be guided to the stables. After a little while, the courtier will guide the characters over to their guest accommodations. The courtier's own private house is nearby the kitchen or tavern area. Other houses are for accommodating the estate staff and the visiting guests. The distant relative will be guided over to another private house made in the same style of the main hall and the house of the baroness. At this point, I would allow for the characters to explore and interact for about 1 hour before the time of meeting with the baroness for the banquet later in the evening. The courtier will be called away to attend to an important business that cannot wait. During the next 1 hour, the characters can converse with each other, with the distant relative, and with the estate staff. They can explore through the different areas of the buildings, various statues, the family graveyard, a freshwater pond, and the cave with the bats. Among the key points at this time, either the distant relative or someone of the estate staff will ask the characters if they have heard about the dragon who lives in a cave underneath the estate. According to the legend, the dragon is an ancestor of the baroness, and somehow the dragon has been trapped beneath the ground. The baroness goes to visit down there sometimes, using a secret passageway. The dragon's lair is the source of the special wine that the baroness drinks to retain her youthful appearance, despite being more than 100 years old. Potentially, the characters can attempt to look inside the courtier's private house, and they may even try to follow him. The courtier's house will be found empty. A few records and ledgers are here pertaining to the management of the estate. The bed looks like nobody actually sleeps there. The wardrobe and other supplies appear to be only half of what should be in here. At this time, the courtier covertly has moved through a hidden passageway leading into the underground area. The characters might be able to observe or follow. If the characters will explore into the underground area at this early stage of the adventure, then I would adjust to make the courtier come back after just a few minutes, carrying a barrel of the special family estate wine for the Baroness. He carries the barrel apparently with no effort, although it must weigh 3 or 4 times as much as himself. If the characters are using the same secret passage entrance, then the courtier will meet them and forcefully yet politely guide them back out to the surface, while stating that nobody is allowed into the private wine cellars without the express permission of the Baroness. Later tonight at the banquet, the characters may ask for this permission. Otherwise, during the free 1 hour of time prior to the banquet, the characters can make several discoveries. The distant relative can share more about the family history and the legends of a draconic bloodline. More of this information can be ascertained by looking through the family graveyard and noticing the names, dates, and other attributes of the graves and crypts. Additionally, the characters can observe the structure and style of the private house where the distant relative is being accommodated. At least superficially, the design appears to be similar to the personal house of the Baroness and to the main hall where the banquet will occur later. If the characters will converse with the estate staff, then they will learn that all of them admire, adore, and idolize the Baroness. They say that the privilege of working at the estate is more than worth the minor inconvenience of feeling sleepy and tired all of the time. They say that something about the water can sap the strength from people, just like the plants and the trees are not as healthy as they could be. The distant relative of the Baroness might be suffering from something similar. The Baroness herself is immune because of her draconic family heritage and the special wine that she drinks. For everyone else, though, they receive regular treatments from the courtier, involving small samples of their blood and a special concoction to lessen the feeling of weakness and sleepiness. Overall, these minor issues are not important to the estate staff, who all love working here close to the Baroness. If the characters will explore in the cave with the bats, then they can find a secret door that opens into a long and dark staircase descending deep beneath the ground. The bats, giant bats, and other creatures in here are hostile toward anyone regarded as an intruder. If the characters want to explore through the caves at this early point in the adventure, then they probably will make some progress through the area before needing to rest and recuperate. They will need to decide if they want to continue, or else to go back to attend the evening banquet within the next 1 hour. Soon enough, the courtier and others will come out to search for the characters. The personal house of the Baroness is much like the house where the distant relative is staying. The front room is a study. The back room is the bedroom, and something is unusual here. The bedroom contains no windows. The bed appears to be more like a sofa lounge where the Baroness may have rested on the bed occasionally, but she did not actually sleep beneath the covers. Barrels contain some of the special private wine of the Baroness. When walking over the carpet, the underlying ground feels uneven. Removing the carpet will reveal a rune stone, and interacting with the stone will cause it to move and reveal a secret staircase that descends deep into the darkness. I would not expect for the characters to go through this entrance at an early stage of the adventure because the Baroness will be in this house and certainly will prevent the characters from going through the secret passage. Moreover, the characters have not yet met the Baroness properly at this point, and the protocols would require for them to wait until the time of the evening banquet in the main hall. At a later time, though, the characters could explore through here either on their way into the underground area or else on their way to exit. The evening banquet will be at the main hall. At the designated time, the courtier and at least one of the estate staff will guide the characters and the distant relative over to the main hall. After a short time, the Baroness will arrive and perform a glamorous entrance. During the banquet, just like the rumors that the characters heard earlier, the Baroness does not eat anything, and she drinks only her personal wine that the courtier brought from the cellar. Nonetheless, she clearly is hungry, and she refers to everything and everyone as a tasty morsel, a quenching drink, delicious, satisfying, and fulfilling. The Baroness will make a show of honoring her distant relative who has brought her vivacious self to the family estate where she belongs. She will converse briefly with each one of the characters, probing them with questions about their family bloodlines, asking if they ever tasted blood, and talking about her affinity for the bats who fly freely through the dark of the night. The banquet event can be a wonderful opportunity for building tension through social interactions. By now, the characters should be suspicious that the Baroness is a vampire, and that the courtier is involved in supporting the vampiric habits. In my approach, I maintain a list of questions that could arise and that the characters may want to investigate, and I make sure that the characters gain access to at least one clue for each question. What is the story of the draconic bloodline of the Baroness, and how does this heritage affect the vampiric attributes? What kind of medical treatment is the courtier administering, drawing blood from the estate staff and concocting elixirs for them? Does any of this activity relate to the private wine collection in the cellar? What is happening in the underground caves, possibly involving a dragon ancestor of the Baroness? Given all of this context, what could the Baroness be planning to do with her distant relative coming to live here? The courtier is guarded about divulging any useful details. The distant relative, the estate staff, and the environment of the estate all can provide honest yet limited clues. The Baroness will enjoy playing a game of teasing the characters with information just barely shy of admitting that she really is a vampire and wants to drink their blood. If the characters ask too many questions or inquire too specifically, then the Baroness will laugh richly and say something like, "You are a curious one. You may yet taste the answers that you seek, all in good time. After midnight, my estate can fulfill you with secrets, if you are open to drink the pure dark of the night." After a while, the Baroness will make an early but flamboyant exit, bidding everyone a good night and encouraging the characters to enjoy their time here. Soon, the courtier politely will announce his exit, noting that he must attend to the Baroness. At this point, the characters should be equipped with numerous clues and hopefully a good amount of motivation to continue exploring and adventuring. Some of these aspects could be enhanced through the backstories of the characters, especially if the characters are linked to the place, the specific people, or the themes related to vampires or dragons. Later in the evening, the courtier will abduct the distant relative and carry her into the underground area as part of a ritual that the Baroness has been preparing. Potentially, the characters could interrupt the abduction, or else later they can interrupt the ritual. The next major part of the adventure will involve the underground area. 3 secret entrances could be discovered, and everything connects in one way or another. The cave with the bats is probably the easiest secret entrance to be found. A long staircase descends into a chamber with a pool of muddy water. Throughout this area, bats, swarms of bats, and giant bats are hostile against anyone who they do not recognize as belonging here. You might consider to add various kinds of snakes, giant snakes, or other creatures in the muddy water. At one spot, someone has made a home inside the cave. This person once was a priest and a scholar, dedicated to the Baroness's family. Due to an exposure to powerful magic, however, this person was corrupted and transformed into a bizarre creature, still dedicated to the Baroness's family, while working unsuccessfully to find a cure and being ashamed to leave this place. Another secret entrance is at a statue, where the courtier earlier had gone to fetch a barrel of wine for the Baroness. In this area, the courtier operates his secret laboratory with an undead assistant. The courtier prefers to stay down here and not in his above-ground private house. In the laboratory, the courtier experiments with living and dead bodies. I should caution, please to be respectful about the content that would be acceptable for your situation. Some of the test subjects could be held as prisoners, either awaiting treatment or else under observation. You could consider various forms of vampire spawns, zombies, and other options. You could adjust the details to suit your preferences. The least likely secret entrance for the characters to find is inside the house of the Baroness through the rune stone in the floor. Here, a staircase leads down to a passage with 2 doors. One door opens into a shrine for the Baroness to consult with the spirits of her ancestors, including dragons and vampires. Another door opens into a private library loaded with the family history, lore about dragons and vampires, and the details of exactly what is happening here. The Baroness has been studying how to enact an arcane ritual that will bring her oldest draconic ancestor back to life. This ancestor was the original dreaded dragon vampire. The key ingredient for this ritual is the living blood of both the draconic and vampiric bloodlines. The blood of the Baroness does contain both bloodlines, but somehow it is incomplete after so many centuries and generations removed from the original ancestor. It can be completed, however, with the blood of the distant relative who is living here now. The Baroness and the courtier have prepared to enact the ritual tonight. At a certain point, the courtier will abduct the distant relative and carry her through this secret passage on the way to the ritual area in the larger cave. Both the family shrine and the library contain additional secret doors that open into short corridors. At the end of each corridor is another secret door opening into the larger cavern area. The characters probably will discover at least one of these doors from the opposite side when exploring inside the main cavern space. All of the cavern areas connect together. The characters could enter or exit from any of the three options. The characters will encounter hostile creatures in various spots. They may be able to use stealth, magic, or other means to avoid combat or to minimize their exposure. One area contains the coffins of several people, primarily at the outer fringe relations of the Baroness family. Some of the coffins are for the non-family members who were close to the family, similar to the current living examples of the courtier and the estate staff. A vampire priest and a few others come here to pray. During a combat situation, the priest will awaken or animate the dead to rise from their coffins. The climax activity here is at the far end of the cave, near the secret doors that lead to the private house of the Baroness and to her family shrine and library. In this area, a pool of water is the grave of the dragon ancestor of the Baroness. Upon an altar, the Baroness has installed her own personal sarcophagus where she sleeps whenever needed. This place is where the Baroness will lead the ritual to mix her blood with the blood of her visiting distant relative toward reviving her ancient ancestor, known as the first ever dragon vampire. Depending on how the story might develop, the characters may have interrupted the abduction of the distant relative, or they may be here now, just in time to attempt to interrupt the arcane ritual event. Possibly the distant relative was rescued, but somehow a little sample of her blood was taken and could be sufficient to enact the ritual if the blood can be delivered quickly enough in a fresh condition. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you can use or modify this project in whatever manner will work best for you. Based on this project, what will you imagine in your games, stories, and adventures? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comment section. As always, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.